Welcome to episode 4 of Behind the Grind, the YouTube and podcast series that explores stories of the personal side of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Julianne Q, and in each episode I'll be sitting down with a different entrepreneur for an honest conversation about their path to success. The next 2 episodes I have for you were filmed in Ottawa, Canada when I was there last fall. Not many people know this, but in 2018 I considered moving from my hometown of Vancouver to Ottawa. And to my non-Canadian viewers and listeners, just picture the equivalent of moving from LA to Washington, D.C. Only Ottawa is much smaller than Washington, D.C. And in the 90s, Ottawa was Canada's high-tech capital. Today, it's becoming a burgeoning tech hub once again. It was here, when I was building my network, that I first met James Nguyen. When we met, James was a commercial banker who had taught himself Mandarin and became an expert in Asian-Canadian investment relations, having raised millions of dollars for his clients over the years. There was a part of me that looked up to James because we share a similar cultural background. His parents, like mine, immigrated to Canada in the 80s from Southeast Asia, and James knows what it's like to begin at the bottom and work for everything that he's ever had. This is perhaps the quality about him that I admire most. And finally, at the age of 36, James became an entrepreneur for the first time. Along with a team of esteemed scientists, James and his company Quantropi are working to make the Internet of Tomorrow more secure. Here to talk to us about it all is James himself. Welcome, James, to this podcast.
Thank you, Julianne.
Okay, so that was my introduction of you. How would you introduce yourself?
Well, I definitely agree with you. We came from humble beginnings. Come from a family that came from the Vietnam War, arriving to Canada as refugees. And so I'm always very humble and very grateful for what I have. I grew up with a family with 3 brothers, so 4 boys. And I'm always very grateful for everything I have. And as you said, after graduating, I joined one of the largest banks in Canada and excelled in my career, led the Asian Markets Initiative in Ontario North and East. And eventually, I felt that, an opportunity came and I had to take it. So after leaving the bank, I joined a very successful entrepreneur in town and became his chief investment officer. And before I got into cybersecurity and quantum communication, I got into a business called graphene. And graphene is a new super material that's 200 times stronger than steel, lighter than plastic, more semiconductive than copper, and it has unlimited applications to make a profound effect on how we live and do things in the future, especially around the kind of like industrial applications.
Right.
And then since then, in between, I also started another company called Donda One Partners that helped fund Canadian companies and help Canadian companies go global. I joined the board of directors for the Hong Kong China Business Association. And of course, during all this time, I've also volunteered a lot because my parents coming off of the boat, becoming part of Project 4000, I volunteered a lot with INTAC and the Ottawa Chinese Community Service Center to help a lot of newcomers with job placements, job training skills, or even advice on how to deal with unfortunate incidents such as domestic violence or whatnot. So like one of the projects that I worked on with the bank was around the settlement of the Syrian refugees. So that there, the reason I did a lot of that not-for-profit work was because I always wanted to give back, because the community here in Canada gave my parents an opportunity, to build their future, coming from a war-torn background. And then, me and my brothers now have, an amazing life. And so I always say that, we got to give back, and done that. And so when I got the opportunity from my, I guess I call him my current boss now, but he tends to call me his partner. He gave me an opportunity to get into graphene, and I think that was a way to help protect our planet, because graphene is going to be much more sustainable for our planet.
What is graphene?
So graphene is a new material that comes from graphite, right? And so it's a 2-dimensional material, and it's it's been around, I guess, for about 10 years now, and I'm the Chief Investment Officer and VP Asia operations for the company called Graphoid.
Right.
That's based out of Kingston.
Right, and that's something you're still involved with in your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I'm more involved on the strategic level, come from an executive management team, and I leave a lot of the kind of day-to-day operations to the team that I built over the past 3 years, and we're looking at expanding into markets in the Middle East, in Asia, and of course, and expanding in North America. So there's a lot of good things happening there, but most of my time, if not 100% of my time, is spent on Quantropi.
That's the one I wanted to talk about because Quantropi is really exciting.
Yeah, so Quantropi is a quantum communications company. It was founded in 2018 with my co-founder, Dr. Randy Kwong. And what it does is it does quantum communication. And how it does that is it applies quantum mechanics to make information more secure and faster. So, you may have heard of the announcement by Google in September where they announced quantum supremacy. So what is quantum supremacy? So as we have very complicated math problems that protect our information today, well, a quantum computer can break that math problem, which makes us vulnerable to quantum attacks. So Google announced that they can solve a 10,000 year math, that would take a supercomputer 10,000 years to solve this math problem. They solved it in a matter of minutes, right? With a 53 qubit computer, right? So what Quantropi does is Quantropi helps enable today's society and technologies to continue to advance without being afraid of quantum attacks.
Right. So what would you say to critics who might write what you guys are doing off is building a faster time machine? Because time machines don't exist.
Yeah, well, when people say, what you're doing is out of this world, it doesn't make any sense or whatnot, we just use science, right? Because a lot of our science, I'm not the scientist of the company, but all of our science is based on fundamental principles of quantum theory, right? And we've filed 5 patents. 1 has been granted, our core patent has been granted, and we're issuing publications, and we're working with industry partners as well as companies to further validate the use cases of our technology.
Right. It's almost as if pointing it to the evidence today doesn't suffice as an argument against what you're doing because, for example, they say in 2040 artificial intelligence is going to surpass human intelligence. We know that's coming. We know in theory that that's coming, although we don't have anything to point to today that it is here.
Yeah, well, I guess discussing artificial intelligence, I don't personally believe that artificial intelligence is ever going to surpass human intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is going to be able to do certain tasks better than humans can.
Right.
For example, we're working with a company based out of Montreal that works on enhanced human intelligence, right? So, for example, just so you understand a bit of the industry, is that in basically cyber warfare for kind of like in the air attacks, so for pilot. So that are flying, in a jet fighter, the most common attack and growing are cyber attacks because the brain can only handle so much at a certain time during a high risk or high pressure situation. So how do you deal with that? You got to train your brain to become stronger and better at dealing with these situations. And also Quantropi also provides security solutions to prevent cyber attacks. Now, eventually, artificial intelligence is going to get stronger, the automation and machine learning is going to get more efficient, but at the end of the day, artificial intelligence cannot do one thing that human can do, and that is create. The power of humans is that we can create. So I just think that artificial intelligence is great, right? Yeah. But is to say that it's going to surpass human intelligence. I believe that that's a big statement because the human potential still hasn't been fully discovered yet.
That's really optimistic, and also one that I would much rather believe over the fact that, well, not the fact, I just have a really grim outlook on humanity, which I don't know if I want to get into, but I think we really do need the optimists. It's the optimists who pave the way forward. So for me, The best way for me to get to know a company, and I apologize if this sort of is backtracking a little bit, but the best way for me to understand a company is to understand the main problem that it solves. So do you think you could, before we move on to sort of like the more personal questions, do you think you could share with the viewers and listeners what main problem Quantropi solves?
The main problem that Quantropi solves is that it provides a security solution towards quantum attacks that is here now today, or coming at a much more higher level, and a solution that's very lightweight, okay, extremely secure with over 1 million bits of entropy, and also it doesn't require to replace any existing infrastructure. So it's a plug-and-play solution. We definitely have competitors and other companies that are trying to do the same thing, but a lot of them are using a classical approach or a mathematical approach towards a quantum problem, right? Our approach is truly quantum to deal with a quantum problem. So, we don't believe in using an old method to solve a future problem, right? So I think our solution is, much more relevant, much more feasible, and there's no line of sight or distance or, a lot more, and much more cost savings and energy savings compared to other solutions today.
That's great, thank you. So how did you, as you mentioned, you are a commercial banker by trade. You come from the world of finance. How did you become the CEO of a tech company? And the last we spoke, I think Quantropi is valued at.
We right now are just closing our second seed round and at a post-money valuation of $25 million.
Right. So that's significant for a startup. How did you become the CEO of a tech company with little tech background? So,
like I said, I founded another company called One Partners that does investment to other Canadian companies. We led a $1 million investment round into a company called InBay Technologies here in Ottawa, and at that time, the co-founder of that company was Dr. Randy Kwong. So that's how I met Randy, and then Randy getting to know me and understanding how I was able to help commercialize a very new technology, new industry such as graphene successfully. He kind of said, you know what, I've left this InBay company for several years and I'm looking to commercialize this new idea. Randy's a genius in science and quantum physics and whatnot, but he needed a partner that was very strong on financing, commercializing, and just monetizing a concept. So that's where I came in. So I became an investor into his company and became a co-founder. And I think the biggest thing I bring to the company is that I'm able to see a lot of dots that most people or a lot of people cannot see, and see a lot more dots than a lot of people can see. And I'm able to connect those dots in a way that a lot of people can't connect them. And I think that's the value that I bring in sense of strategy. I also truly treat everybody I work with as family, and I truly care about the people I work with and the purpose and the vision of why we're doing things. Like Quantropi's vision is to build the quantum internet. That's our 10-year plan. Basically before that, we're looking at to focus on personalized firmware, and currently we're focused on applying quantum key distribution, using our technology. So without photonics, using software or virtual or physical quantum gates.
Yeah, so you sort of touched on my next question for you, which was how do you think your background in commercial and investment banking, how does it influence the way that you lead your company? I think in one sentence.
Okay. In one sentence? Yes. Like commercial banking? Okay, so.
Or maybe it's a fallacy that you need to be a tech person to lead a tech company.
I
think it's the team that needs to be multifaceted, right?
Yeah, I think, in any company, in any startup, you need multiple skill sets and multiple type of personalities and different expertise to make a startup succeed. The expertise I brought into the company was one of the biggest problems a startup has, and one of the problems that takes the most time of a startup is raising capital, right? And also finding the right vision, right way to promote your vision, right? And your purpose, and selling your story. one of the biggest advice I have to startups that are looking to become a startup and incorporating and doing a business is, make sure that you have a business that is not going to be extremely hard for you to go raise money. Because if it's extremely hard for you to go raise money, you're going to spend all your time trying to raise money and not building the business you should be building.
Right. So what does that mean?
That means is truly having an unbiased assessment of the problem you are solving. Getting feedback and testing your concept, doing your R&D, talking to customers, and you shouldn't really get into really investing a lot of time and money into your startup until you have at least one or two or a few customers that say, hey, I need your solution. Right. I really need it. And and once you have that validation from the market, then you can go back to your team and your investor and say, hey, this is why I want to build this company.
Right. So how have you been able to demonstrate demand for your product?
How we've been able to demonstrate demand for my product is really, we've done our research, like in 2016, the US government issued a paper asking for solutions for, the next cryptography solutions for, the quantum era. You see announcements by Google, IBM, and all this stuff. They're investing like, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into quantum theory research, and into quantum computing. China is investing tons of money. Russia, the U.S., the EU, Canada. So we know that this is an area that's going to be of importance down the road.
So aside from making sure you have a solution that people actually want, what other factors play into the valuation of a company? Obviously, when you're fundraising, you would want your company to be valued as high as possible. Is that true?
You want your company to achieve whatever your exit goal is. So if your exit goal is an IPO, or is it to be acquired for a merger and acquisition, or is it to have organic growth and continuously just grow, right, over the years? So the first step is you have to decide how you plan to exit the company as an employee, as a founder, or as an investor, right? So, one of the key things is understanding what investors want, and when you have a startup is investors will invest, first and foremost, in who is driving this ship. They will look at the founders, they will look at their track record, they will look at their personalities, they will look at how they handle things, how they work within teams, and how they are able to leverage the resources, right? They will also look at what's your story, what's your pitch, why does this make sense, what's your go-to-market strategy, i.e. your business plan. They'll also look at what contingencies or what risks have you considered, what have you done in place, what key success factors have you identified, what key partners have you already talked to. Like these are the little things that investors or even your employees that you're looking to hire are going to want to know, because people are not going to want to work for you if they think you're going to be out of business in 2 months.
And also whether you have skin in the game, which today I've learned
you
do. They say, I think I read somewhere that the average age of a successful entrepreneur, I think, is 36, which is the age that you were when you started Quantropi. And it feels a little funny to be asking this because I'm a millennial, you're an older millennial, but I'm a younger millennial, and in my generation, it was sort of like the thing to do to start a company because we came of age, during the financial crisis. We've seen our parents struggle to make ends meet. And I think that's one of the reasons why millennials as a generation tend to be more entrepreneurial. But I also have noticed a discrepancy between wanting to start a business in your early 20s, for example, and then actually succeeding. I mean, as you know, I've started a number, and that also means, I've sold one, but I also failed one. And whereas you, at 36 last year, that was when you became an entrepreneur for the first time. What do you have to say? Like, what would you say are some of the pros of waiting until you've had more experience?
Well, I think it's understanding, trying to figure out that purpose that you think is yours in life. Like no failure is going to guarantee that you're not going to succeed tomorrow, and no success is not going to guarantee that you won't fail tomorrow. If I was to comment on the average age of 36 that I so happen to become an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, I think the reason why that's probably maybe a statistic is that you need to fail a lot, to be so you could be humble enough so that you continuously learn and take advice from people that have been there. I think with the generation today, they're very fortunate because there's a lot more resources, there's a lot more incubators, and the truth is, if I was in my parents' position where I just came off a boat and I gotta try to send money back home and raise 4 kids, I'm not thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, even if I wanted to. I'm thinking about, putting the bread on the table, making sure, putting clothes on my kids. So it's a different mentality. So I think in order for someone to become an entrepreneur, they have to be in a position to, if you want to take risks and whatnot, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to your values. If your values is taking care of your family, I think until your family's taken care of, you're not going to be taking any extravagant risk. And then once you're in a position to take those risks and you've been basically armed with the tools, if you've gone through the life's education, you are taking professional education to support your goals, to become an entrepreneur, and the timing is right. And a lot of times it's also an opportunity just comes and you just have to take it, right? Yeah. So you don't know when you should take it or not, but your heart will always tell you. And I think the key thing is always following your heart.
Right. So what would you say to the 20-something-year-old who's just graduated from university and decides, I'm going to run my own company?
Yeah. Well, I think if someone in their 20s come to me and say, I decided I'm going to run my own company. I said, that's great. That's very courageous. And I say, in your 20s, try to experience as many experiences as you can, not just in business, but in love, in relationships, in traveling to different destinations. Do as much as you can because you can, right? And the thing is, and if you don't feel you're ready, then don't do it. But the thing is, don't be afraid, right? If you're given an opportunity, take the opportunity first. If you don't know what to do with it, you'll figure it out later.
What if you are in your 20s, you don't have much in terms of life experience, but you've got a startup that you're very passionate about and you're preparing, to take it to, you're looking into raising capital for it. So you mentioned earlier that life experience, who the founder is something that investors look at. It's something that they probably prioritize. So if you're young, how do you work around that?
Well, consider it this way. If you have a great idea, and you fully believe that's a great idea, and you're young, well, guess what? You need to find a way to make it happen. If that means splitting that pie half and half with another co-founder or another partner so that you can make it happen, you have to assess if that makes sense. Or you say, I need to make sure that my rent is paid and all this other stuff is paid, so I need money. So if that means giving some of the pie to a private investor or angel investor, that's something you have to decide, Or sometimes, is say, hey, I don't have the resources to do this. I just want to see this come to fruition. I want to see my vision come to reality, and I just want to be part of it. And you sell this concept to somebody that does have it, or the idea, the IP, and you become part of it, but a small part of it in the sense of the equity component. So what I'm talking about is the equity component. I think it's really what you want. And if money is the key driver for you to do a startup, I'm almost confident that you will fail. So the reason for you to do a startup has to have a strong purpose and your vision, of why you became an entrepreneur and what's driving you, what's that passion behind it. That there is going to dictate if you're going to succeed or not in the eyes of an investor.
How do you know if money is your primary motivator or not? I know it sounds obvious, but I feel like a lot of people tell themselves one thing when the truth is something else.
Well, the thing is like this, denial can happen very easily, right? Only you will know if you're truly doing this for the money or not. There'll be nights when, late nights, or there'll be very challenging situations where you're torn between work-life balance, and all this other stuff, and you will know that if you're doing this for money or for other reasons, or if you're truly doing this because you believe in the vision and the purpose. Only you can tell yourself that. Nobody else can.
It's that inner voice inside.
Yeah.
I relate to that so much because my experience with the incubator, So in 2018, when a series of unfortunate events happened, seemingly all at once, it really became clear to me that my why wasn't there, and it wasn't enough to get me through. So I'm sitting here, even though I'm interviewing you, I'm also taking notes from you and learning from you. So thank you so much for all of your insights. This is a little bit of a personal question. And it has to do with what you perceive are your weaknesses as an individual. What are some weaknesses you think you have?
I think my weaknesses, and I've definitely been working to get rid of a lot of them throughout the years, but I say my weaknesses is that, I tend to maybe get a bit emotional or maybe impulsive around decision making. And I think that comes less or less over time as I become more mature. And learn and realize things. I think also my weaknesses from a business standpoint is, I'm very good at being a visionary type of person, being very strategic, creative, open-minded, right? But I don't get excited about the details, and getting granular. I like to focus on the big picture. So I'm very good in sales and whatnot. But the thing is, I'm happiest that way because that's how I bring other amazing people into my life and help build something great.
Have you ever taken a Myers-Briggs personality test? Like 16 personalities. It's an information shortcut for taking something as complex and convoluted as a personality and then ascribing to it, 4 letters that tell you about what this person's personality might be like. And I'm hearing this thing, and it'd be really interesting if after this interview you could take the test, because I feel like you're an ENTP, which is the visionary. They call it the visionary.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if I've took a lot of tests, but I don't remember the names. But I could definitely do the test and see what comes out of it.
Steve Jobs was an ENTP.
Oh, really?
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, ENTPs are they're really good with the big picture. They are, like I said, visionaries, but when it comes to like the fine details, that's not their strength. And that's okay, because we're all different. And I think really where we most flourish is being able to position ourselves in a place that allows us to harness our strengths.
Yeah, I think as long as you recognize your weaknesses, and you have a plan to, work around them, i.e. bringing the right people to complement your weaknesses. But for me, I'm always a stronger believer in focusing on your strengths and polishing and refining your strengths, and being excellent at what you're good at. So not just being good, being excellent at what you're good at, and letting the other people become good or excellent at what you're weak at.
It's just a better use of energy and time.
Yes.
Don't you think? So what advice would you offer aspiring entrepreneurs today?
The advice I would offer is, definitely follow other successful entrepreneurs and get to know not just the stuff you hear in the media and whatnot, but understand what they've gone through in other aspects of their life, if you can, or have access to maybe a local entrepreneur, so you can understand that it's not easy, right? There's going to be times that you're going to go through really tough situations on the family front, on the personal front, and sometimes even on your own health, So and you have to be strong enough to just believe in yourself, believe in your purpose, to surpass all these challenges. It's always going to be up and downs, and not to give up. Be persistent. Everything's a process, and at the end of the day, if you do end up, basically passing, and life ends, well, at least you did your best. I think the key thing is trying to live your life with no regrets, following your heart, and don't lose yourself. Just be yourself.
And overcoming fear, because I feel like fear can keep us stuck in so many ways.
Yeah.
You realize the pace at which you guys are moving along is like lightning fast compared to basically every other not every other. I've worked with, I've consulted for a number of startups. This is like the world that I come from, and so I have an idea of how these things normally go. Usually you start off with a really optimistic timeline, and you never execute according to that timeline. But it really seems like Quantropi is executing on or ahead of your timeline.
Yeah,
which is rare.
Yeah, well, I think the benefit I have is working with a lot of other companies and a lot of other tech startups at the bank. I've been able to see what works and doesn't work, and how being the banker, always asking for other people's projections and then discounting it, or adjusting it my own way based on experience. It made me be a bit more realistic with ours, and of course, timing is everything. So, and that's the reason why I decided to start this company, is that with Randy, is that I knew the timing was good. And if you miss this window of opportunity, it won't come again.
Right.
So even though as you know, I was going through a lot of personal issues in the past couple of years, I decided to do this because I think this could be a huge difference for for basically society, for Ottawa, for my family, for my daughter, for my friends, for my investors. This is an opportunity that won't come again. So I said, you know what, I want to take it, and what I can't do, I'll put people around me that can do that. And I built a family within a family, so it's been going well.
I got that impression when I toured your office in August, that everybody, first of all, your co-founders are really intimidating with all of the patents they have on their wall.
But
your team, really cohesive, family vibe. I just feel really good about where you guys are going. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that you took this time to chat with me today.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a time where we can start announcing some key developments that is kind of under the hood right now. But once those announcements happen, I think you can be saying that you'll be the first one that gave me a video interview.
Yes. I love that. Okay, what's next for Quantropi, and what's next for you? I don't think we've really caught up since the last time we spoke.
Yeah, so for me, my day-to-day, keep on doing what I'm doing with Quantropi, following the plan, continue actioning, tasks to achieve our goals. We're looking to close a seed 3 round early 2020, then probably Q2, Q3, looking at a Series A. We're aiming to be revenue producing in 2020, launching our MVP product. So a lot of things are happening, and of course I could list probably a lot of more things that are going to happen. But for me, it's at the end of the day, I want to be a good family man. I want to be a good CEO, and I want to do my investors well, my family well, my friends well, and of course my community. So if I'm able to, like you said, give back to an aspiring entrepreneur in the sense of advice or tips, or even recommendations, that's something I enjoy doing. Helping people enriches my life.
That's great. I think on that note, we're going to end the interview.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
No
James.
problem.